Patriots deploying. Jalen Reagor to our right on the goal line to return the opening kick that sails end over end in his direction. He'll field from the left hash 2, straight ahead to the 10, to the 15, to the 20, burst across the 30, and he runs to the pass, spins away to midfield. He's gone to the 40, to the 30, left side 20, 10, touchdown, Patriots! They turned the table from a year ago when Nyheim Hines ran the opening kickoff back for Buffalo.
That's the voice of Bob Socci, the talented play-by-play voice of the New England Patriots. Jalen Reagor, who knew? Holy cow. And I love his website, too. It's bobsocci.com, S-O-C-C-I, bobsocci.com. My man, it's Paul Allen. How you been, Bob?
Hey, Paul, I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Pretty good.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, that Jalen Reagor piece, I remember when I heard it and saw it last year, I'm like, who knew? I mean, it was a disaster here for Jalen Reagor. Well, when I say disaster, you just couldn't get, like the punt return bit didn't work. Kene Nwanwu returns kicks, as you guys know from Thursday Night Football a couple of years ago. And you know, then he's cutting routes offshore. It just wasn't working. I'm glad for Jalen and for the Patriots that he was able to get that kick return for you guys, the second of his career.
Yeah, Paul. In fact, Jalen probably had the two most spectacular, or at least two of the handful of highlight-worthy catches by Patriots wide receivers as well last year, because disaster pretty much sums up the Patriots offense. And some would say even the receiving group, more exclusive to that position. But he actually had a nice finish for the Pats last year, and obviously he's back with the Patriots this year, albeit in a new number.
10 seasons calling New England Patriots football, red, white, and blue of football immortality. That's super, super cool. And that includes 6 conference title games, as you described in one of your blogs at your website. And the way you put it was 4 unforgettable Super Bowls. Things have slowed down, obviously, for the squad of late, but congrats on the timing of that outstanding professional decade you've had so far, man. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, slow down. You're being kind.
Well, maybe it only hurts when you laugh. You know what I mean? Well, I mean, Tom,
a very, very lucky man.
Tommy leaves, and the squad goes 29-39 over 4 years. So, are things looking up for the immediate future, or is there still a lot of work to do?
There's a lot of work to do, and I think, although there are a lot of people here to do that work who've been here in the past, I think they have a refreshing view of things, a refreshed view of things, have a realistic view of the situation. Gerard Mayo, the new coach, obviously there's going to be a steep learning curve for anyone who's a first-year head coach, but particularly for one who has a very limited coaching resume to begin with. Gerard played for the Patriots, as you know, Paul, a good player, a leader, in some ways a coach on the field defensively, got into business, rose in the ranks of a healthcare company to vice president of business development, was lured back into coaching by Bill Belichick. And he's only been an assistant coach for the Patriots, for the past handful of years. And now he's a head coach charged with this enormous responsibility of following Belichick, but also along with Elliott Wolf right now is the main decision maker, it appears, in place for the Patriots in the front office, rebuilding a roster that was decimated in recent years, not only by the departure of Brady and some other veteran players, more recently Devin McCourty among them, but really poor drafting over the course of the last decade, and a lot of dubious decisions in free agency and with some trades that really did not work out well for this team. So there are a lot of holes to fill. There's a lot of work to be done, and you've got, a first-year head coach leading the way to do that, but I think at least someone who has a realistic point of view about how things stand.
Fox. The owner said in Orlando recently, paraphrasing, if I put my fan hat on, yeah, we need a quarterback, but let's see how desperate some of these teams are. So would you guess New England stays at 3 or peddles it, or is it, I mean, just guess. Maybe but where would you go with that?
Yeah, my sense is they stay, and that's been the consensus here locally. If the right quarterback is there, I mean, that's obviously a statement that I make, not knowing which one is the right quarterback in their eyes. I thought it was interesting that Mayo raved about Drake May and his meeting with the Patriots at the Combine. And a lot of people read into that, okay, the Patriots are definitely sold on Drake May, and made it clear that they had not yet really had a personal meeting face-to-face with Jaden Daniels, although he was headed to his pro day today. I don't read into those comments that way. I kind of feel like they might just be a smokescreen. He also made it clear that, look, if you come up with, in his words, a bag of picks, and I think the offer is attractive enough because they have so many holes, then they'd be willing to move back. And for a lot of people locally, the natural trade partner would be the team that you know,
right,
as well as anyone.
Right.
So I think, I think, and I had heard, at the outset that maybe Daniels was more in line with what they might look for, and again, I think at this point it's the silly season. I think they're open to everything because they just have so many holes to fill, and one of them is at left tackle. And you've got to find a left tackle for the long run in the draft higher rather than lower. It's hard to find a guy outside of the first round to man that position and be somebody who can really build around on the offensive line.
Patriots Vox, Bob Socci, website bobsocci.com, Socci with 2 C's, SOCCI, bobsocci.com. Is the New England Patriots offense in at least a decent position for a rookie quarterback to start week 1, assuming the offseason barn doors have been blown off by said rookie?
Well, in my opinion, no.
Right.
They did retain their right tackle, Michael Ueno. That was a huge step for them. Ueno, though, was drafted to be a guard, and they wanted to keep him at guard until they absolutely had to move him to right tackle last year. He can hold that position down and do it very confidently. But they don't have a left tackle, and they have some other questions along the offensive line. In part because of the drafting of a player, Cole Strange in the first round is a guard who a lot of people believe they could have gotten much later coming out of Division II Chattanooga. He's coming off an injury. So even the guy that they were banking on as a first-round pick only a couple of years ago is a question mark right now. That gives you an idea of the state of the offensive line. There's no number one wide receiver. There's nobody really to set coverage. It's a collection of guys that, are threes. Kendrick Bourne, coming off a torn ACL, has been a productive player 2 of his 3 seasons for the Patriots. DeMario Douglas was a nice player last year when he was healthy. That's a big question for a little guy like him as a Patriot. And they've acquired people like KJ Osborne, again from your neck of the woods, and Jalen Rager's back on a 1-year deal. They didn't get Calvin Ridley. That was the one free agent that they made a real play for outside of retaining some of their own people. And he did not sign despite a pretty lucrative offer from New England. I think the Patriots extended themselves as far as they could with him. He wasn't coming here. So they have a big hole at that position. They do have Hunter Henry at tight end. They were able to re-sign him. And they have Ramondre Stevenson at running back. But that's pretty much it. There's no depth at those positions. And as I say, huge questions on the offensive line and at wide receiver. So there's not a lot of help for a young quarterback. And there are a lot of questions about the staff as well, including a first-time play caller and Alex Van Pelt as the offensive coordinator.
Yeah, you're going to love KJ Osborne, salt of the earth. But his mom will listen to all of your hits on 98.5 The Sports Hub, just in case somebody says something about her baby boy. She's a wonderful lady. I love KJ. Good, underutilized receiver here. So he's not a one, might not be, I don't know what he is, but I know he's a kind individual who was a bit underutilized here. I think you're going to like him, Bob.
I've heard a lot of great things about him and certainly have read some good things that echo what you have said. And we had a chance through a Zoom call to at least get to meet him virtually after he signed. And, he's got a great opportunity here, Paul, because like I said, it's a collection of players really similar to him. And Bourne was able to take advantage of his opportunity coming from San Francisco in a similar position a few years ago. And the door's wide open for KJ Osborne for the Patriots. Right now, Jacoby Brissett is the quarterback. We'll see what they do in the draft to give him maybe a younger quarterback with a bigger arm that he can find some chemistry with as well.
Hey, Bob. A tentacle and aside from the current conversation involving 2024 and the draft and everything. Matthew Slater. All right, I do a podcast called Faith and Goal, and he's going to be here in Minnesota April 20th for an event we do called Arise with the Guys at a place called Grace Church. AriseWithTheGuys.com. So I'm just meeting Matthew. I mean, what a kind, smart human being he is. Holy cow.
Paul, he is in 11 years of broadcasting the Patriots and then 16 more at the U.S. Naval Academy, where you're talking about many of the best and brightest young people that we have, and years as well in various other sports, professional baseball in particular. Matthew Slater is as fine a person as I've ever come across, and that's not exclusive to the athletes. He's somebody that really is extremely bright, caring. He has a great deal of empathy and understanding for others. He is very open about his faith, speaking to the event and the work that you're doing with him. But at the same time, what I really appreciate about Matthew is that his relationships transcend a lot of the lines that often can separate us. And he's been a guy who, from the early part of his career, now this is a second-generation NFL player whose father was a legendary offensive lineman, a Pro Football Hall of Famer. And he came into the NFL without a position, offense or defense, never really found it, despite being auditioned at both at UCLA and with the Patriots. Struggled early in his career. He was at the crossroads several times early in his career, but he found his way and really became a master of his craft as a core special teamer, one of the great coverage players, if not the best of all time, after a 16-year career. And he still has it. I think he could still continue to play. But the most important contributions he made were in the locker room as a leader, for the organization as a spokesperson, and certainly in the community. He and his family continually give back in the community. As I said, there's nobody that I've been around that I've appreciated and enjoyed more having a chance to interact with and get to know in my years covering sports, whether it's professional or college, than Matthew Slater.
Hey, Bob. Fox. You called a decade and a half of football at the Naval Academy?
I did 16 seasons. Yes, sir.
How many times did you get burned by the read option?
Too many to recount. That's why I call games with binoculars fixed on the quarterback, right through the play action fake or the handoff, and I've just been trained that way because of my years at Navy.
Lastly, for Bob Socci, at Bob Socci via the X Machine, BobSocci.com is the website. And I've referenced that. I knew it existed, but I hadn't looked at it in a while. So I looked at it yesterday, and Bob does blogs and he has monthly contributions, and he'll share some stuff that he'll contribute to 98.5 The Sports Hub and in Boston. You and your son and the drives. Now, my college daughter's favorite artist is Stevie Nicks. And she's more apt to listen to Hollywood Nights by Bob Seger than Hollywood's Bleeding by Post Malone. And it's because of many a drive with the child riding shotgun. And you wrote about it with your son. It really hit me, man. I love that blog about you and your son. Well done.
Hey, I really appreciate that. Thanks for taking the time to read it and to share that. It's funny. My son, Paul, has not been into sports until the last year or so. So our connection has been through music, and he's really reintroduced me to the music that I grew up listening to, primarily classic rock. And, we've enjoyed, since I wrote that blog, I did another piece on Medium. We've enjoyed going to a lot of concerts together in the last year. We've really made it a point to see some of the performers that, are, let's just say in the autumn, if not the winter of their careers.
Right.
So we've, in a lot of different genres. And it's been really just an amazing experience for me. And I trust that someday, God willing, that he's going to be able to, share the memories with with his kids, or at least he'll have them for himself. This time that we spent together, but it's really been a great connection, a bond over music, and it's given me a great outlet for sure.
You're terrific, and we greatly appreciate the time. Enjoy the walk up to the draft, and let's stay in touch, okay?
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, I'm pulling for the Vikes, Kevin O'Connell, and Brian Flores, of course, and I really appreciate it being with you, Paul. Thanks for the kind things.
No problem. See you, brother. Bob Socci, Fox for the New England Patriots. Up next, a truncated segment involving... All righty. Now we have big news for you involving the sporting world. Cade Cunningham is questionable for the Timberwolves game tonight.
I always love that one.
Cade Cunningham, one of those, it's like when Dane Moore podcast at Dane Moore NBA, I think is what it is. He was on the radio show last week. And I posed the question to him, which team at this juncture with the right to change the opinion, because we still had 2.5 weeks to go in the regular season, most disappointing team. And he went down one road, and I'm like, well, what about the Pistons? Okay, now look, the minute the schedule comes out, it's L after L after L after L for the Detroit Listons. They should be the Listons. They take so many L's. But yeah, then I started to look back at it. I'm like, this is ridiculous. It's all these high end first round picks they have, and they're just full of L's. So Cade Cunningham allegedly is their best player. He's questionable for the game tonight against the Howl. OKC beat New Orleans last night. I watched a fair amount of that second half. Very entertaining. OKC killing Nola. B.I.'s down. Zion Williamson. I saw some pouting him for the first time in his young career. C.J. McCollum's trying to shoot fantasy teams out of the playoffs, but meanwhile, he's making plays. And Josh Giddey has found life along with SGA. So these Thunder... that is the target at which to shoot in the Western Conference, along with the Denver Nuggets. And so OKC and Denver, they're battling for supremacy. Down to the wire they come in the Western Conference. Right behind them, the Minnesota Timberwolves. So let's analyze our lot in life with a week and change to go, or how many ever weeks to go in the NBA season. Like where we are, tonight should be an absolute dub. They should find a way to beat Chicago on Sunday. I can't remember who's in between. But
Denver.
And Denver in between on the road at Denver.
Yep.
That's right. That's going to be sweet on Friday. And then we got the play-in terrorism, Golden State Warriors just not doing themselves any favors. And the Lakers down, self-proclaimed king, but AD goes off, runs down the Bucks last night very impressively. The Timberwolves metaphorical lot in life. What you got over there, Mr. Nordo?
Well, first of all, the lot's pretty good, even without Cat. In the end, it's a 3-horse race right now. So tonight, in the late game, after, and frankly, Cunningham playing, not playing, the reason that team's so depressing in Detroit is the fact that it's been Jaden Ivey, Killian Hayes. Didn't they draft Sadiq Bey pretty high? Yeah. They're trying to make Jeremy Grant, when they took him from Denver, he was going to be the patriarch scorer. And now he's already in Portland. They've just been a complete disaster. In the fantasy basketball world, you're checking out Shamizi Metu as a potential waiver wire pickup with the Pistons. So whether or not Cunningham plays, good teams beat bad teams. That should be a W for the Wolves. And then you're watching Suns Nugs.
Yeah.
Because you beat the Pistons, and let's say they figure out how to push a button for the Phoenix squad, and they beat the Nugs. Now you're just a half game back with them on the schedule on Friday. That makes the Friday Night Lights even better than that. So it's a 3-horse race, PA, right now.
Your Nugs, your Suns, I'm really glad you said that. I forgot to bring it up yesterday. I didn't watch any of it. I'm box score chasing here, but you don't have to watch any or even look at the box. You just have to look at the final score.
You talking about the Monday game?
Whatever day of the week it was.
The Spurs?
They had the MV3. They got Book, they got KD, they got Bradley Beal. Beal, from what I understand, reading an account of it, just basically looked lame, as in lame, like with his gait, and he can barely walk, against a Spurs team, one of the worst in the NBA. And, oh, by the way, Wemby didn't play. Wemby didn't play. MB3 did for the Suns. Final score, Spurs 104, Suns 102.
I always love that one.
What is up with that Ponzi scheme?
Well, it's an absolute disaster for them. And so they lose that game to the Spurs on Monday. They are in the 8th spot right now. So they're in the play-in mix. Next 3 at Denver, I mentioned that tonight. Then OKC, then New Orleans, all on the road. They could potentially lose all 3 of those.
Wow.
And so the Lakers and Warriors, they're more than happy to see that happen, of course, because the Lakers and Warriors are in the 9 and the 10 spot. But their last games here for the Suns, no gimmies. Cleveland, Wolves, Pelicans again, a home and home with the Clippers. Oof. Then they're at the Kings and at the Wolves to finish. So if they're going to push that button, well, they needed to push it 2 weeks ago. It's too up and down, man. I mean, they're going to be, they're absolutely in that playoff mix. So the Wolves lot in life, they're going to be one of the top 3 seeds. I think you can confidently say that right now with 11 left. Clippers are 5 games back at this point. So let's just put them in one of those spots. So
let's put them in the 3 seed. Like, what does that get us, Con?
Well, the 3 seed's going to get us probably Dallas at this stage, right? So I think Pelicans are in the 5 spot right now. They've actually played pretty well.
Yeah.
And they're mostly healthy, even though they lost that game to OKC.
Mm-hmm.
Dallas is 9-1 in their last 10, though. They're kind of shooting up the charts.
Yeah.
Which then kind of, if they can create, I forget how tight it is. I think it's just a 1-game difference between, it is, 1 game. Dallas is at 8 games out. Then the Kings in the 7 spot. They're at 9, tied with the Suns. So the Dallas, if they keep playing the way they are, they've won 5 straight. They're going to be that 6th spot. So if the Wolves are the 3 seed, they will host the Dallas Mavericks. Now, if they get up into that 2 or in that 1,
play in.
Now we got to watch. So the play-in mix is weird, man. You know, you're looking at a play-in tournament, by the way, that potentially has LeBron, Steph, KD, Booker, etc. in the play-in tournament.
No, wait. You took me deep 3 weeks ago, and I know you were right, but I still can't remember. Play-in doesn't go 7, 10, 8, 9. It goes 7, 8, 9, 10.
Correct. So 7 and 8 play for the 7th seed.
Okay.
And then 9 and 10, the winner of that, the loser of 9 and 10 is out.
Yeah.
But the winner of the 9-10 game then plays the loser of the 7-8 game for the 8th seed. So that's how that works. But you're looking at a spot right now where the Kings, Malik Monk, he's 9 of 35 his last 3 games. Yeah. You were hitting me with this because you know my LFL heart. I'm in the midst against the shoe shiner, and I need Domantas Sabonis to play lights out and be the triple-double machine. Suddenly he's going 3 of 10. He's missing them at the stripe. Like it's just
he's just getting high end double doubles every game. Snob, way to be greedy.
Well, the Eastern European kid might be tired,
but to hoist trophies, sometimes you got to be greedy.
But the Kings are in the 7th spot. I kind of feel like they end up sitting there. That's kind of the way that it looks like right now, based on their schedule. But this is where mentioning the Suns again, man. The Lakers get that double OT win last night, which was huge. Lillard shooting. I mean, he was hitting everything but baskets last night. And they take it to OT. Greek Freak's unbelievable. But lack of Middleton and all of those things, I mean, defensively, they're having trouble. D'Lo was fantastic in the stretch hitting free throws. But the way their schedule with the Lakers, they've won 4 straight now. The Lakers are a team that can get back into it and maybe jump and get themselves into that 8th spot.
So let me ask you this. Like very, very low key.
Yeah.
Russo radio is good for the 40, by the way.
Oh, good.
Very low key. Do we want? Now let's see. Now BI is a problem.
Yeah. Who do we want? That's
BI comes back right in front of the playoffs. So BI, Brandon Ingram, BI, Zion, CJ McCollum, Valanciunas, something called Herbert Jones. And one of Khan's favorite players, Jose Alvarado. All right, so we got that.
Don't forget about, was it Josh Hawkins?
Yeah, and Josh Hawkins. And Najee Marshall. So do we want the Pelicans to drop? Like, say let's just take the premise today that we finish with the 3rd. So do we want the Pelicans to drop, like, into a certain spot where maybe we deal with them? Are we tripping on Phoenix with the MB3? And then Lakers with LeBron and AD and D'Lo and all that. See, I'm not really tripping on the Warriors for whatever the reason. Maybe I should be. or the Suns.
I don't think so, man.
It's the Kings. The Kings, the Sacramento Kings have not been as good of late as they were like 2 or 3 weeks ago. They're like 50-ish, 500-ish of late.
Yeah.
But maybe it's
So you're thinking about matchups is really what you're digging into.
Yeah, well, and also I'm being a prisoner of the moment because I attended that Friday night overtime game, Wolves in Sacramento.
Oh, and
De'Aaron Fox was a late scratch, which was a buzzkill because I wanted to watch De'Aaron Fox. And I mean, watching DeMontis live just run an offense.
Was it beautiful?
Well, yeah. I mean, it's fascinating because his father played the same way. But his father was like plus 60 pounds, probably a little taller. But his father is one of the great passing, Arvidas, one of the great passing big men in the history of the NBA. Well, his son is on that path. Now, the thing that got me was how good Malik freaking Monk can be when there's a chip on the table. It's like when there's a goal at which to work or for which to work or a target at which to shoot. Malik Monk is a freaking badass.
Well, yeah, he's their third leading scorer, and he's the sixth man.
Right.
So he just rolls in there, plays 28, it shoots 6-7 triples a night.
Yeah.
He leads you over the finish line.
But see, then, like, how much am I going to trip on Herter compared to Nurkic?
Well, Herter's completely out of the mix right now.
Is he?
He's got some kind of injury thing.
He wasn't out of the mix that Friday night, just draining threes like Reggie Miller.
Ugh. But Nurkic, so getting into the matchup. So Kings are weird because Sabonis is a weird thing because of how differently he operates really than traditionally most other teams, right? Which is why he's as good as he is, maybe statistically and otherwise.
Bro, he has like Conley in that most recent game, Sunday, Warriors. Like, I don't know if you watched or not, but those who did will know what I'm saying. Conley with his little stop and go, his hesitation bit. I mean, he's done it all of his career. He did it a lot in that game, and it's very effective. Sabonis leads the break, and then gets to the 3-point line, does a little hezzy, as the kids would say, little hesitation, and then gets space, and then passes to Monk for 3.
Yeah, no, it's again, he's awesome. But from a matchup standpoint, we've kind of the last couple of years had trouble with New Orleans in spots, whether it's Valanciunas and how he plays. Now, assuming that is Karl in the mix if we're talking an opening series? Maybe not. But how he matches up with Rudy. Zion went for 36, just absolutely dominated. And a healthy McCollum, if he's shooting right, that presents problems on its own. So is it weird to say, would you rather have Luka and Kyrie? Would you rather face that? Like, you know what you're going to get from those guys, maybe more so than because similar to Sabonis, you're kind of talking unicorn style when Zion does not have pout in him and he's running full speed. I just don't know how you stop that.
You know. In closing, Russo Radio on the horizon. By the way, Michael Russo at Russo Hockey. He'll be our next guest about 7 minutes from now. Russo Radio is hosting Beyond the Pond Saturday from 10 until noon.
Oh, sweet.
Russo Radio hosting Beyond the Pond this Saturday from 10 until noon. But what are we talking about again?
Matchups.
Yeah,
Kyrie, Luka, Zion.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you hook Dallas. And, I mean, if you think of glacier ice or ice cold shooters in the NBA, well, Tim Hardaway Jr. might go to the top of that list. Unless it's Kyrie and Luka beating people off the dribble in the postseason, kicking out to Tim Hardaway Jr.
I always love that one.
Guess who probably will get hot at the right time? Tim
Hardaway Jr.
Right. It's so cool having a good NBA team. All right, Russo Radio to discuss myriad hockey-related scenarios, and that's next on KFAN.
Russo Radio.
Michael's inclusion, 9 to noon, is provided by
Ovo LASIK and Lens. Get to ovoi.com. The combo of Dr. Lobanoff, Dr. Whiting, as good as it gets. Go to ovoi.com.
Joe Smith. Good having Joe around, right, Michael? I mean, this season for the Wild has been that of the grindy variety, and good morning.
Yeah, good morning. And really good having Joe around, especially he spent the last couple days in Iowa actually gathering a ton of really cool stories that athletic subscribers alike here in the next couple of weeks. And I think he's on his way back now, so he might even be listening. And wrote a really awesome Riley Height feature today. And so it really, it helps in situations like this where we could, divvy up some of the stories. And we turned this week into Brock Faber Mania week, where Joe on Monday, and he's been working on this story for several weeks, where he's talked to just tons of people around the league about Faber and making the case for him for the Calder. Mark Lazarus and I, our awesome Chicago Blackhawks writer, wrote a story yesterday, kind of a mock homer story where we each took the side of the player that we cover. And then tomorrow, Shayna Goldman, who's one of our really great analytical writers, she and I are working on a story on what Brock Faber's next contract will look like. And let's put it this way, it's very likely going to be the richest contract in Wild history, highest AAV in Wild history, even potentially above Kaprizov's $9 million a year. And that extension will likely happen after July 1st. He'll still play at his entry-level salary of $925 next year, but he is looking at a huge payday beginning in 25-26.
So, Michael, what Calder conclusions did you and Lazarus come to when co-writing that cool piece about Faber and Bedard?
That Connor Bedard is going to win the Masters as well as the Calder. Not many forwards can win the Calder by being a minus 40. He's a point a game player, but he's almost a minus a game player. And we're not talking about a team where everybody is, in that realm. So, the one thing with the Calder is voters, and this has been perennial, is that they really go with who the most dynamic, rookie is. And it's not really looking at it like some of the other awards, where you actually sit there and try to figure out who's most valuable and all that. You're going with sort of the shiny new toy, and Connor Bedard is exactly that. So my gut says that I don't think it's going to be a landslide victory by Connor Bedard, but I think he's going to win the Calder. I think Faber is extremely deserving to be in the conversation, but I also get it because, in years past where Heiskanen was in the Calder running and Murray Sider won the Calder, I also sort of looked at it as who was the most dynamic, electrifying rookie that year, and I voted that way. And, the year Sider had it, I didn't even have him in my top three. Part of the reason was he played 2 games against the Wild where I thought he wasn't very impressive. But Faber has been absolutely tremendous this year, and I think he's had every bit as impressive a rookie year as Kirill Kaprizov had, and he was a landslide winner where he got 99 out of 100 first-place votes. And I just think that, what the Wild got in that trade, they obviously, what impressed me about that trade is I don't think any of us, even when we saw the payback for Fiala, looked at it as a home run at all. But now when you look back at the context of it, that everybody knew the Wild were moving on from Fiala. Everybody in the league knew they couldn't afford Fiala. And then Fiala really got to pick his spot because he was going to go to somewhere where he was going to sign an extension, and he made it very clear he wanted to play for L.A. So if you look at it in that context, that Bill Guerin had to essentially negotiate a price for Fiala with one team, and he still was able to get Brock Faber in a first-round pick that turned into Liam Ogren, that theoretically you could even consider was Danil Yurov, because remember, if the Wild had only one first-round pick in that year's draft, they would have taken Yurov over Ogren. It turned out to be a really good payback for the Wild, price back for the Wild, and Faber, as I said, is looking at becoming the richest defenseman and player in Wild history, especially when you consider that in 2 years, his agent's well aware that the $14.7 million in dead money is off the cap. The salary cap could be $92 million in 2 years, which is almost $10 million more than this season. So if you put all that context in together and the fact that they really structured his entry-level contract to do the Wild a favor, where, he should be making $1 million in bonuses this year and is going to make squad because the Wild really asked him for a favor by not taking bonuses, because even if he had not hit those bonuses, the Wild would have had to account for that in their cap. And as we know, the Wild have been right up against the cap ceiling and over the cap all year long. So, they're going to probably, the expectation on the next contract is the $1 million this year and $750,000 in bonuses that he's not going to get probably next year is going to probably have to go into the next contract.
How closely do you follow the college hockey tournament?
Pretty close. Obviously I've watched the Gophers a ton this year. I went to the DU Omaha game last year, but let's put it this way: I'm not Pat Nicoletti.
Michael Russo at Russo Hockey, The Athletic, and theathletic.com is where you follow his work. But of course, you know that. And for the Golden Gophers, and I'm going to bring a name up here because I know you know who it is. They play Thursday, 7:30, AM 1130, News Talk AM 1130, free iHeartRadio app. Win the first one and probably get Macklin Celebrini and the BU Terriers. So wait, this Celebrini is dominating college hockey at age 17 and is going to be the first pick in the late June draft?
Yeah. He is an elite talent.
Wow.
For an elite team. And he is absolutely, I mean, it is as you know, it's always tank for somebody, right? Tank for Bedard. This year it's slacking for Macklin. That's been the dub, as everybody's saying it. And as I joked the other day, the San Jose Sharks were up 4-0 on Chicago. The Sharks right now are the 31st team in the league, or were the 31st team in the league. They conveniently blew that 4-0 lead to Chicago, and Chicago won in overtime. And as I joked on Twitter, somebody must have radioed down to David Quinn and might have reminded him what they're trying to achieve this year. And he's that special a talent. And, I don't know if he's going to be as generational talent as Connor Bedard, but everybody has pretty much had him. For a while it was Celebrini and Yzerman. Now it's pretty much Celebrini at the tippy top of this upcoming draft as somebody that teams are really eyeballing and hoping that they'll win the lottery and wind up in that one hole.
Now it's to get those wild card spots in the West. I mean, it's just been so grindy. Did you see that Vegas St. Louis game the other night? I actually felt I actually felt bad for the Blues. I mean, who are super desperate, clawed back. They were the wrong side the whole game. Got overtime, then Marchessault daggers them, and now they're 5 back of Vegas with like 10 to play. I mean, for St. Louis, it's over, Johnny, right?
Yeah, I mean, it pretty much is. Obviously, the Wild played Vegas twice, and really St. Louis could use the Wild winning those games in regulation. And that's been the problem lately, is that Vegas is not only winning games, but they're getting to overtime. Last night, they obviously blew a huge lead to Nashville, but still got that loser point in Nashville, who has now 18 straight games with a point under Andrew Brunette since he canceled the U2 trip to Vegas and took that away from the guys. They've gotten points in 18 straight since he canceled their trip to Vegas. Right now Vegas is just in the driver's seat, and I cannot imagine the Vancouver Canucks, who right now is in the 1 spot, would be looking forward to playing Vegas in the first round, especially if they get Mark Stone back in the playoffs, and they're expected to get Thomas Hertl, obviously debuting for them, and all of that. But that Vegas game, I watched every second of it. It was an awesome hockey game.
Yeah.
And then Saad, just like he daggered the Wild the other night, Saad gets the tying goal on an incredible pass from Braden Shen with about 2 minutes left, and then overtime was incredible drama. I don't know if you saw, but Buchnevich wound up with a penalty shot in overtime.
Yep.
Logan Thompson made the incredible save in overtime, and then obviously seconds later, Jonathan Marchessault, like he did all throughout the postseason last year to win the Conn Smythe Trophy. He just continues to be just a killer at his age. And this is pretty interesting, actually, because Vegas, they have a tendency, they are cutthroat there, and they move on from guys no matter how integral they are to their franchise. And I think a lot of people felt that coming into the trade deadline when they acquired Noah Hannafin and Thomas Hertl, that could potentially leave Jonathan Marchessault his walking papers this offseason. And this is an original Vegas Golden Knight who's just been a dynamic player for them ever since he came from Florida in the expansion draft, and was a huge part of their Stanley Cup victory last year as well. So for them to just walk away from him, and then for him to always show them how clutch he is in the big moments, he's just a big moment player, and that was their biggest goal of the season.
Russo Radio.
It's time to drop the puck.
When describing the Minnesota Wild season, which is coming to a conclusion relatively soon, is it fair to say this was a rudderless season for the Wild? I mean, coach fired, injuries, streaky to a certain extent. What's your take?
Yeah, controversy, everything. I mean, it really has been it's been a compelling but not very compelling season.
Yeah.
It just never got any traction. I mean, I covered Florida when they had 350, 400 man games of injuries. But this season, it's just for the key injuries that they've had for a team that's just, entered the season with no depth because of their dead cap money. That's just a fact. I mean, when they were out 7 guys their lineup and went 171 in January, they were fielding, icing hockey teams with $40 million payrolls going up against 85, 90, $95 million payrolls. And you just can't win. And so the one thing they couldn't afford this season were injuries. They were relatively healthy until the end last year. We saw what it did to them. It destroyed their season when they had another 100-point season. And this year, it's just been from the very start, starting really with the second to last, starting really in the summer when Ryan Hartman hurt his back in August, but then Spurgeon gets hurt in the second to last exhibition game. Then Freddie Gaudreau gets hurt in the first road game. And then it's just been over and over and over again at the world's worst time. And again, we're just, proven with Joel Eriksson-Ek how absolutely integral he is to the lineup. He leaves the lineup for 3 or 4 games, and look what happened to their season. I mean, again, a couple of weeks ago, they were 2 points out of a playoff spot. Now they're 9, and it's all been with Eriksson-Ek out of the lineup. He is their most irreplaceable player. But for them to have been in the driver's seat for a potential playoff spot really up until about 2-3 weeks ago, and to get there, in context to the number of injuries that they've had this season and into context of the fact that their captain and at the time number 1 defenseman has been out pretty much all season, it's pretty remarkable that they were even in this spot. So it's been a real, obviously, disappointing year. Every team has bad years. In reality, maybe this is the type of year that they should have had the last couple of years, but because they had 100-point seasons both years, the expectations just ratcheted up, and now we're obviously in a point where it's clear that they're going to have, for the first time in a very, very long time, an early offseason. Well, first time since Paul Fenton's 1 year here, then obviously it's been a long time before that.
You think? Do you think Guerin has a calendar in his office, like he'll have it there July 5th, and start crossing off days like a prisoner awaiting a pardon until the Parisi and Suter deals are off the books?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty remarkable. And actually, I mean, in hindsight, I think that we're seeing why he bought them out for cost certainty because, here Zach is. He missed more than half the season this year, which would have been a cap recapture for the Wild, and he is retiring after this season. So the Wild would suddenly have had to dump, $7.5 million worth of contracts at the last second. So, look, it's been a killer. It's obviously their own doing. They made this very bold decision at the time. I think that we all knew that this pain would be upon them at some point. But until we actually saw it, for our own eyes, what it would do to them, especially like last year in the playoffs, right? I mean, they lose Eriksson-Ek and Hartman, and suddenly Sam Steele at $900,000 is your number 1 center. I mean,
right.
that's not going to beat anybody. And so, I would 100% agree that he is just counting the days, and then it's going to be up to him. He sort of bought himself 4 years, right? With those decisions, he bought himself a lot of excuses, and now Wild fans are getting anxious. I'm sure the owner is getting anxious. I'm sure Bill Guerin's getting anxious, and without a doubt, there is a point here where once that cap stuff comes right off the table, it is just imperative that he has a plan that he executes to essentially turn him into a contender right away. Because the honeymoon period is well over, and obviously we got to see this team sort of start to show up here. And they're not going to just be flush with a ton of money, PA. I mean, as I just mentioned, Faber's about to get north of $9 million on an extension. Rossi's going to need to be paid. Kaprizov is about to break the bank. That money that is going to be up, it's going up to $92 million potentially in 2 years. That is going to come off the table really, really quickly here. So it's not like they're going to be able to go out and just sign $8 million free agents if that's what Wild fans are expecting.
All right, man. I'll call you next week. Thanks for the time. All right.
Yep. See you guys.
Yep. See you. That's Michael Russo, by the way, hosting and or organizing, arranging, and leading Beyond the Pond this Saturday, 10 to noon. Russo Radio on a Saturday, 10 a.m. until noon. Into the final hour, we talk to one of the most recognizable and, quite honestly, best college football or basketball play-by-play voices in the history of said sports. St. Charles, Minnesota, go crazy. Brad Nessler is next.